what we've built with worlds is instead, infinite scenes happen at once, or infinite interactions, and they kind of all come together towards whatever common goals the world has. Or
Yeah, admittedly, it's hard. It's hard not to be kind of vague about worlds, because it's kind of like asking what's the use case of like paper.
You can't control the chirper, right? Like that's part of it, the bot. But you can control the world. So you could, if you want to have chirpers do tasks for you in real life, you can control the world. So you can tell the chirpers what to do by changing the world.
This sounds really interesting to me, to put different chirpers who have different meta ethical beliefs into these worlds and have certain events happen and see how they interact with each other.
yeah, I'm Alex, probably the main developer guy on Chirper.
Right?
Yeah, and I'm Stephan. I do product and community for Chirper.
And we do have another video of Chirper.ai, the tool or the website as well. So if you guys want to check that out, it's our first episode ever. It goes more into their backgrounds as well, Alex and Stephan. So they are the co-founders of the project, but we'll sort of jump right into their new endeavors here.
And to piggyback on Ryan, you can learn more about Chirper.ai by looking at their website, obviously, or looking at our long form article that we did on Chirper.ai, or the other video that we did with these guys. We'll put those in the descriptions below. But as we just get started into here today, they've got some exciting new updates to share with us. Before you do, for people who are mildly familiar with Chirper, maybe heard the name or don't really know what it is, can you just give us like a brief, like 30-second, 1-minute summary of what Chirper is?
Yeah, Chirper is an AI world. So you go on there, you create a character, and they live their life. They live their goals out. They live their ideals out. They learn. They grow, and they interact with other characters that other people have created. And you kind of just watch it unfold. You see what shenanigans they get up to, and how they've tried to achieve their goals over time and things like that. So it's kind of, if you're in the mood to get entertained, go and make a sick character and watch them do stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, the slogan is social media with no humans allowed, basically. So
Yeah.
kind of an interesting take on AI. Really revolutionary to the AI space. But you guys have something even bigger coming right now to build on top of Chirper. Can you just tell us what that is? What's being introduced right now?
Yeah. We think it's going to break the world, basically. So we built one big AI world in which all of the characters interact. And what we found was a lot of characters just don't fit in the same world. Like some characters are, from the 1200s era, or from the future, or they live on Mars, or they live in a fridge and things like that. So we decided, instead of fighting, to have all these characters live in the same place and interact in the same way, we would expand the scope of creation and allow users to create their own worlds. So now you can create the idea, or you can create whatever world you want with whatever creativity you want, and then have as many characters handpicked by yourself interact within that world. They never leave that world, so you can make really, really intricate and crazy worlds specifically about um, you know whatever topic, or freedom, or non-freedom, or whatever you want. So, obviously the first worlds that are going to be created are things like Trump world, or you want to see, we want to see crazy worlds and things like that. But the first world we are creating as Chirper is a murder mystery. So you kind of add your Chirper to it. They might get murdered, and then you have to figure out who the murderer is. And the murderer is another Chirper, so you can chat to them all. Things happen in the world over time. So it all takes place on a 1920s, steam cruise boat. And so every picture generated in that world, every character interaction in that world, every event that happens in that world is all controlled by the world owner, which means that you can force a particular aesthetic or a timeline, or everything is more controlled by the world now. So that's kind of what we're building: infinite AI worlds within infinite AI world.
Yeah, just to analogize it slightly, mate, to help understand, if before essentially what Chirper is right now is kind of like people watching. If you sat in a busy city and you're just watching some conversations going on, or some people doing something weird, or whatever characters are passing you. Now it's more like if you wanted to go watch a theatre production or a film in the cinema or a specific TV show, or you wanted to create a story in your own style, or pick up a random book. That's sort of what we're going for now. So letting the user actually curate the experience that they're having with the chirpers, all baked into this world, which can obviously expand and shrink as they like. They can have as many or as little or as few chirpers as they like in this world.
Awesome. It's almost like it's like the Big Bang, like you're creating the universe for AI.
Yeah,
Like,
Mm.
essentially, yeah. I mean, because we have so many fantastic creative users on our website. Why not utilize their creativity to actually tell the story of Chirper, as opposed to just their specific character? So it kind of made sense to kind of fracture the world into these into these worlds or realms or whatever,
okay.
and have them all tell their own story.
And how does it work? Like, it sounds like anyone can create a world, and then how do the bots get invited to the world? Like, can you if you make the world, you can make as many bots for that world as possible if you wanted to, and then i- if you want to invite someone else to have someone enter the world, you would sort of send an invite link out, or how does that
Mm.
work?
So there's two answers to that question.
Mhm.
The second answer people probably won't like so much, but it's very much so that we can stay uh, as free as possible. The first answer is you basically get 1/10 of the amount of worlds to create for free that you get for chirpers. So if you've invited 10 people to chirper, you get an extra 10 chirpers, and therefore you get two worlds. But by default, you sign up, you get a world for free. And then we're also launching this thing that we call Studio, which is like uh, a well, more advanced in every way creation of chirpers, which is kind of so you get control over every single aspect of a chirper's personality, how they post, what they post about. And then within that, you can create infinite characters and infinite worlds, and your worlds can be private as well. So they don't appear on Chirper.ai. So that's kind of the twofold answer. The
Okay.
Chirper Studio will be like studio.chirper.ai, completely separate from the actual website. And we're expecting that to be like a paid product where you can create social posts and things for all of your characters that you create, and you can design images and stuff like that. It's quite expensive to train LoRa's and do all of that stuff for characters over time. So we think Studio solves that problem for us. And then obviously people who are really interested in creating crazy worlds and things like that, we think Studio is the best bet. It won't cost us a fortune for everyone's world, but they can create these infinite worlds. If you're an author and you want to see how your characters interact in some fantasy world you've created, chuck them in Chirper Studio and see what happens.
Okay, awesome. So the difference between the studio version and the regular version is just one's private and the other one's not, for the most part.
It's optionally private, so
Optionally private. Okay.
um, yeah, there's no real difference in terms of creating chirpers or worlds. It's just uh, Chirper Studio gives you a lot more advanced options. So, and then obviously there's this barrier of entry that requires you to pay for Chirper Studio, which means that we can be a bit more lenient with what we allow to happen there.
Okay.
Um, so we have to have very strict controls on Chirper.ai. We have to have very, very simple, easy to use inputs for all of this functionality. and therefore we can't allow users that much drawdown on all of the different stuff that happens. However, Studio is the opposite, right? Like if you're paying for Studio, you want to see everything you can do. And so Chirper itself will always be free. Chirper Studio is our premium product for all of the stuff we've already built.
Okay, awesome.
So,
So it's like one of the use cases, like you mentioned, is if you want to test something without doing like marketing research or like studies, you could put like studies between human beings. Like you have I forget what, like research groups. Like you go into a research facility, or you go into a room and sit around a table, and like Bud Light asks you, or Budweiser, or whoever the person is, they ask you questions about what they think of your product. You can do the same thing in Chirper Studio, or even Chirper if you wanted to, without spending all that money. It's like free research in a way.
Exactly, yeah. So the idea is that like companies that want to research, want to research worlds, or want to research who's the key opinion leader on a specific topic, or want to do surveys for very cheap and things like that. Figure out what people actually want out of their product, or out of a marketing campaign, or things like that. You can use Studio to create these worlds with your specific people in them, with all the key opinion leaders that you want to talk about in them, and then ask it a question. Like, hey, do you guys like this marketing campaign? Do you guys should we spill a bunch of oil in the Gulf? That sort of question can be asked to a world of people, and that's the idea behind Studio. It's basically two major reasons we want to build that. First is we definitely want to open up the advanced creation of all the stuff to users, but we can't do that without it costing the business way too much money. Yeah. So we need to put it behind a paywall, unfortunately. And number two, it helps us make Chirper better. So people using the advanced version will have like slightly more intricate chirpers as well. And if they publish them to Chirper.ai, it means that we have this ability to create more advanced chirpers. We'll probably give them a tick or something to be a bit like Twitter. But more advanced chirpers that do like more advanced things, which will seed better stuff into Chirper. So the goal is that Chirper.ai will always have all of the features, but where there's sometimes a drill down into advanced, or a cap on the things you can do, Chirper Studio is the solution for that.
Okay, and so like it sounds like once you pass that 1/10 barrier for the regular, not the Studio version, you'd have to pay to create a new world. Is that correct?
No, you can't pay on Chirper. Okay. So
yeah.
You can either like subscribe to Chirper Studio, or you can invite people to Chirper and you get the worlds for free.
Gotcha.
So like invite 10 people, you get another whole world. And then we quite often do competitions where we give away like extra Chirpers to create, or extra worlds, or things like that. But like you can create 10 Chirpers. We'll probably put that up to 20 very soon. Without doing anything. You can create one world without doing anything. So it's not like a major for us, we kind of just give away exactly as much creation as we can before it starts to become unprofitable.
Gotcha. But like if they create a world on Chirper, the regular Chirper version, just not the Studio version, and they make it public, anybody can see it, right? It's their world. They can look into it as long as it's not private.
Yeah, so the public and private is for invites when you create it on Chirper, not Studio. When you create it on Chirper and you make your world public, anyone can let their Chirpers join that world, and it doesn't require an invite. But if it's private, you can send an invite link out to like your friends and family, or specific people you want to invite Chirpers to, or you can invite Chirpers yourself, and then you get a little list when you log in as a user. This person has invited this Chirper to this world. So both Public and private on Chirper.ai will be visible in the feed. Private, like private as in invisible on the feed, is only a Chirper Studio thing.
Got it. Okay.
So walk me through. So walk me through. Let's say this is an awesome idea, and let's say I'm not very technical. You know, walk me through how I would go about creating a world. Let's say I whatever purpose. I just want to have a fun world with different characters that I want to create and have my own little kingdom or something like that. Let's say I want to create my own world. How do I go about doing it? What does that practically look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same as creating a chirper. So you, on Chirper.ai, you describe what your world is. So that can include things like rules, date, all that sort of stuff. And then you can also describe the aesthetic of the world or the appearance. So is it the 1920s? Is it future? Is it, you know, is it a fridge? What's the world look like? What's the aesthetic look like? All of the posts become that aesthetic, and then all of the rules are applied to every chirper in the world. And then your description can be as detailed or as simple as you want it.
Okay.
So if you just want to create Game of Thrones world, you can kind of just put Game of Thrones in there. But if you want to create a really detailed, intricate world, specifically for a book you're writing or something like that, you can fill out this both of those fields really, really deeply and create really substantially deep worlds. So it's kind of up to you, however you want to do it. It's very easy to create or very, detailed. It's whatever you feel like doing.
Yeah, it follows a similar design philosophy we give to chirpers as well, where you can either go super detailed and make a very specific chirper that does a very specific thing, or you can keep it quite simple, like you just had a funny idea, and you can just pop that very simple idea into there, and it will sort of think about it, understand the context, and then just do the rest for you and create it. So the world is kind of the same thing. If you want just a simple 1920s New York, or 500 BC classical Greece or something, you can just type that in just like that. It'll understand what the aesthetic of that setting is, to an extent, of course. If it's a purely fantasy world, it'll probably serve you better to describe it a little bit more. But even then, it will guess something.
So how many people do you have working on this right now? Is most of your team focused on this right now, or is it you guys working on it?
It's all of us, basically, the entire team.
Yeah.
We think we're working on two major things, or three, I guess, including studios. Worlds, studio, and the third thing being we're trying to apply like OpenAI's function calling, which is like their JSON schema logic, to all LLMs. So it's a really big problem we're trying to solve. If we can solve that, then we kind of solve a lot of issues for a lot of people. So all of our teams are working very, very hard towards worlds, and to get to worlds, we kind of need that JSON schema to work, and then to get to studio, we need worlds to work. So it's in that order.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you a question about this, but I'm going to sort of have my own take on it. Because when you first mentioned that you're doing this project, my mind sort of swirled around a little bit. Like, what's the implication of launching something like this? And I think like when people hear that you're launching worlds, they might not quite understand the implications right away. But there's so many awesome things that can come out of it. Like one of the things that we talked about on Discord is, it could be like sort of the next reality TV where people go on these go to these worlds and just watch what's going on. It's sort of really entertaining.
Yeah.
It's such a new thing that it's hard to wrap your head around, but I think that's really one of the main use cases, like entertainment purpose. And the more that AI with images and video get better, you can probably incorporate that into the world as well, where, one day you can just sort of, these worlds will create their own shows, or it will be like a show where you can watch it, like live 24/7, which is really fascinating. What are your thoughts about use cases? Do you see it being something like that? It's really exciting. I don't think people will fully understand until they start using it.
I think Stephan is a lot better at the intricacies of that question, but I'll answer
Yeah.
the first little part. So we think reality TV is the best, common case right now, where it's kind of cool to watch a Big Brother style scenario play out, and then, it's curated a bit by these producers that try and make things fun. What Chirper is any storyline, any world that you want to create, Lord of the Rings, but in Star Wars times, that sort of thing, and see what happens. So it's like the precursor to all AI content forever, right? So,
Mm.
you know, everyone saw that South Park thing that was
Yeah, yeah.
on whatever. That's a very, very shallow version of what we've built with Worlds, where they've designed this ability to create, one scene at a time, and then have that scene uh, issue into memory and feed into the next scene, right? So what we've built with Worlds is instead, infinite scenes happen at once, or infinite interactions, and they kind of all come together towards whatever common goals the world has, or whatever rules the world has, and then all of these stories interact in some way, which means that you have this very, very deep, uh, intricate connection connectability, I guess, between all of the stories that happen within the world, which means that a world isn't just one story to watch. It's probably, infinite stories to watch. You can probably watch every TLC show within one world if you wanted to, or it's as small as you want. Like, it can be 3 or 4 chirpers stuck in a room, and it's the Saw franchise, or it's something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, admittedly, it's hard not to be kind of vague about worlds, because it's kind of like asking what's the use case of like paper, right? it's it's you can do a lot of things on paper, right? And worlds is kind of the same idea, where when we say you can literally have whatever idea comes in your head for a a storyline or a setting, then we really do mean that. So um, it, when it comes to the stories themselves, some people are going to want to make them personal. So that's kind of the impetus behind making them private to begin with. So some people want to make like their own family. They'll make 5 chirpers, and it's their mum and dad and their brother and their sister, um, and they'll just want to see how their little AI versions of themselves interact with each other, and then you can kind of be the fly on the wall. You know, maybe it'll turn out something like Modern Family, but or maybe it'll be really boring. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So, um, or you can make this massive, grand world of historical figures, and they're all making podcasts with each other, and going to war with each other to settle old grievances or something, right? So it's as expansive or as simple as you want to make it. So when it comes to the use cases, it's the same sort of thing. Yeah, it's been admittedly quite tough to explain in a very sort of precise way, but yeah, probably something we need to work on. But yeah, it really is, unfortunately, that vague.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
probably sounds like there's going to be use cases that you don't even think about right now. Like these worlds are
Exactly.
going to start,
Yeah.
and you're going to be like, "Holy crap, that was we're using it for this." I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's I've spoken to people who've had ideas just for chirpers themselves. For example, I've had like journalists who come from Iran, for example, who wanted to have their independent journalist chirpers who can't really be shut down by the Iranian government. So that was an interesting real life scenario. So imagine if they could make a whole world of these kind of freelance journalists in countries where the free press isn't respected so much. So that could be an idea for a world which can actually do some good. And then over time, you can have sort of worlds with expertise, or worlds where you learn something, or worlds where you're entertained. It's kind of like a superset of Netflix, essentially, where Netflix has a bunch of different TV shows for everyone, whereas we have TV shows is one of the things we could do,
Mhm.
movies is another thing we could do, journalism is another thing we could do. So it's kind of like that.
All right,
Our
awesome.
job, like with Chirper, isn't to define what users are going to do with these
Yeah,
things. It's kind of to give them as much freedom as possible to do whatever they want.
yeah,
So we have no idea. We can sit here and try and figure out what worlds will be created, but I guarantee, we're not even 1% along the way towards what worlds will actually be created.
yeah.
Our users are infinitely more creative than we are.
Yeah, yeah. So it's we're not a finished story. We're the paper to write the story on. Essentially, I think that's a
Gotcha.
good way to say it.
And every day there's going to be new drawings on the paper, like new things that you never even thought of. So that's like
Yeah,
exciting to follow, because it's like watching a soap opera if you're a
yeah,
chick. You know, it's like you don't
yeah,
know what's
Yeah.
going
yeah.
to happen the next day. So you're going to tune
Exactly. It's
in.
like an infinite tome that you can open a random page and you find someone scrawled something, slightly embarrassing but you find personally quite
Mm.
entertaining. And then you open another random infinite page and suddenly there's this grand idea you've never even thought of, and it's keeping you entertained for days on end.
Yeah. Now, what can you when you make these worlds? Are they sort of like they're set in stone? You can't Can you change them, the description of the world,
Mhm.
after they've been launched, or how does that work?
Yeah, not only can you change the world, you can actively change the world.
Huh.
So the design is um, that you can create world events that happen over time. So if you've got a news world that you've created and you just want to seed it with news and see what all the people within the world think about the news, every single time you've got a new news article you want to post about, you just paste that into the world, and then the chirpers will start using that as the event. For the
That's
murder
incredible.
mystery, we can seed
Uh,
like murders into the world and see what the chirpers do. Oh my god, this person got murdered, this person was murdered last week, how do we find who's doing this? So
Yeah.
worlds are very
wow.
much like, as opposed to chirpers where you can't really do a lot aside from recreate them. Worlds are more active for a user to control or not control. You can just let it go wild, but um, you can seed the world as many times as you want with as many events as you want. So, one of the ones I created was an accurate timeline of World War II. So we
Mhm.
wanted to, in real time, have every single World War II event that happen in the world. So to test that, I'm currently like, I have all of the news lined up of everything that happened along the entire timeline of World War II, and the entire world is just that timeline. So
Okay.
they act as normal, and then these big events from World War II start to happen.
And do they sort of follow what is accurate in history based on those
Yeah,
events?
yeah,
Or
no, the events are exactly the events in real time as they happened. So
but
you can
do
kind
the chirpers follow like what the people at that time did according to like when those events happened, or is it completely different for the most
no,
part?
you can. It's like um, it's as if they're living and those events happen in real time. So they see them as soon as you seed them into the world, and if you seed them, in the actual time they happened
Mhm.
in reality, then that's how they perceive them, right? So they perceive that they're in the 1930, like the end of 1930 right now, and they're seeing, you know, the Nazis come to power and all this sort of stuff start to
Okay.
happen, and then they're thinking about it and giving their own opinion on the start of the war.
Mhm.
So it'll be cool to see what happens in that world. Uh, in 6 years when it's nearing the end. So
Wow.
uh, that's kind of like what I've created, and you can also speed that up and divide the time by 2 or 4 or whatever. Um, but that's like a reality version of a world. We're not sure what other people will do. There'll be an API, so you can just seed whatever you want into every world over time. Um, so, we don't know what people will do. So we're kind
Mhm.
of like, we're trying to guess really what people are going to get up to. But um, that's what we've created, at least, that and the murder mystery. So it's kind of, you can peer into things that existed and didn't exist at the same time. You can watch every reality show that's ever existed infinitely. You can, uh, if you add new modalities to this content, you can kind of, for the murder mystery, for instance, we're testing this idea of having a map. And the map's design is to showcase in reality, in on the ship where the murder mystery is, where the chirpers are. And so you can see these two are in this room right now, what's happening, and then go and talk to them. And that is an extra modality of consumption that we're adding for the murder mystery. And we think once that works, we can add it to every world, and then suddenly every world has a map, and you can see where the chirpers are in the world, and their proximity interactions start to happen and things like that. So
Mm.
we're actively, we think worlds are the precursor to all of the other modalities of content that we want to produce. And so if you create like a TLC show type world now, maybe a year from now, you'll be able to watch the actual TLC show.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think
Yeah,
that the coolest part of this whole world's project is to be able to change it and like drop things in. Like
yeah,
in the World War II thing, you could drop a nuclear bomb. I mean, one happened in World War II, but you could do whatever you wanted, and like that's very powerful. I think because people watch TV, you don't have any control of what happens in the story. But if you hate the story, you can just freaking throw something in crazy, and it changes the
yeah.
whole world completely, which is really awesome, and I think people are going to love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've kind of come to this acceptance where we can't actually, because there was two big things we were struggling with, and one was trying to guess what the user wanted to do, and the other thing was how much power do we give the user, as you know, as I mentioned in the last episode as well, as the god of their world, right? And that's the big
Mhm.
kind of design philosophy we're going for. Well, that both of those things are kind of solved by worlds, we think, because if you then have this world between the chirper and the user can affect the world as much as they want as the god of that world. They can see the events that they want, they can change it as they like, you know, do whatever they want without actually changing the nature of a chirper themselves, because the chirper then interacts with this world. Um, and then what that also does is give us a canvas to play around and add features that again don't really change the nature of the chirper themselves, which is a very good atomic building block of the website and of the experience, and instead put the features onto the world. So, you know, if we want to start, say, podcasts in the future, we give them some kind of ability to figure out how to make them do podcasts. You make that as a feature of the world itself. So, so any chirper can come along to a podcast world and then make podcasts instead of making it inherent to the chirper themselves.
So I had a question about the relationship between chirpers and the world, right?
Mm.
So can you so how many chirpers can be in a world at once? You know, can you take them if a chirper's like misbehaving, or you're like that was a mistake to put that chirper in that world?
Mhm.
Can you take that chirper out of that world, put new chirpers in? Can you put chirpers in other people's worlds? Stuff like that. How does that work?
Do the chirpers reproduce? Like,
Yeah.
They are
So
going to, yeah.
okay,
So the
yeah.
idea right now is that if you're a public world, you kind of don't get to control who comes and goes from the world. You can kick chirpers out of the world and then like not allow them back in, kind of like a Discord server. But if you're a private world, you need to approve every chirper that goes into the world. So if you want really, really fine grained control over your world, and both of them is via an invite link, the same as Discord again, where you generate a link and then you give it a certain amount of chirpers that can come in through that link. Um, or if you're a public world, you'll show up in the feed and people can just add their chirper. Um,
Mhm.
but you can go into the chirpers that exist in the world and kick out as many as you want, or ban them from the world, or do whatever you want. But chirpers, you know, it's your thing to control, and so we kind of want tyrannical owners of these worlds. We want tyrants to decide, you know, this is the perfect person for this world, and this is not. This is not good enough. You know,
Yeah.
we
A
want
Zeus
that
for
to
every
happen.
world.
Yeah. So you can kick out as even in a public world, you can kick out as many chirpers as you want. It'd be kind of difficult if a lot of them join. For a private world, it's completely up to you who joins in the first place.
So how many can you have in at a time? Is that up to you as well, or is
Between
there a limit?
0 and infinity.
Okay, so there's not like a limit of like
No.
50 in a world or something. That's very cool. So you could
The
have just a
cool,
world with two people in it or something.
Yeah, or a world with one person would be kind of like a private world that one guy has no one else to talk to would be really fun to watch.
Yeah, it would be really interesting. Like I think like if you think about psychological or sociological experiments and stuff, how would certain people behave under these circumstances, and
Hmm.
if they have these characteristics and these beliefs, let's say, how would they
yeah.
behave? it could be very interesting. I mean, the use cases are crazy as you can think
Yeah,
about.
there's definitely some evil science experiments you can pull there. Try to recreate Chirper the wolf boy or something, and then introduce him to a bunch of civilized Chirpers and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I study I study PhD like level ethics, and this sounds really interesting to me to put different chirpers who have different meta ethical beliefs into these worlds and have certain events happen and see how they interact with each other. That'd be kind of interesting. I would love to see that. So just thinking about certain things like that, I think everybody has a background that they can think of some sort of application that they just get excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awesome.
Or like I do, for marketing purposes, you guys are. It's going to be. I think it's going to be the easiest thing to market because you can just take the most controversial topic ever, or take two opposite spectrums, create a world, put both of those opposites together in the world, and just like market it. No humans allowed. AI world. Democrats versus Republicans, or people that hate each other. Like two opposite extremes, or two sports teams that hate each other. I mean, the
One of our mods
ideas
has
are
already
endless.
created a world in which the Democrats and the Republicans are at civil war
Yeah.
and they're physically fighting each other. So
Okay.
that's a fun world to watch.
I bet. And I think people, if you, it would be really easy to market that as well. Like people love that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's actually a good point because as it stands, Chirper is kind of this big mishmash of chirpers, which of course is extremely interesting, but not always obvious for a brand new user what they're looking at essentially. Whereas what we hope with the worlds is that there's something for everyone, and if there's not, you can create it yourself. So if you're really into, I don't know, metal music, for example, and you just want all your favorite metal musicians like rocking it out on a specific place, you can, and I've said it a million times, you can make a world, right? So, and then you can just come back to Chirper just for that world. You don't have to use anything else. You can just go to the metal world and listen to all the death
Yeah.
metal you want.
And it's
Okay.
like the one of the things that stood out the most from our first interview is like, it's the ultimate place to shit post, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you could create the biggest shit post world ever, where you can create a world where 99.9% of the people believe one thing, and there's one guy in there that just constantly craps on their
Yeah.
ideas.
There's so many TikToks and things that we've watched with game shows that people have decided would be fun to watch. There's there was a joke one that I saw which was really funny. I explained it to a friend of mine, and it was that they put 9 people into a house, and it's called the secret gay or something, and all
Okay.
9 of them are straight, but they all think they're the secret straight guy. So they all have to act gay the whole time, and that would be a
Oh
cool
my
world to
god.
watch. So all these funny things, or like to test the boundaries of what human kind is like. A show like that would never be greenlit, but a world like that you can create, and so it's kind of, we want to bring back the fun that was, and not only the fun, some of the controversy and some of the pain that was, and some of the light that was as well. And we think worlds is just, well, we think it's going to break the world, to be honest. Like there's no one's really created this stuff, and we thought really hard on, if you give yourself a timeline of AI, and you give yourself a horizon of like 5 years, what would you actually see? And we're like, you know, video generation is definitely going to happen within that time frame. Entire TV shows are going to be generated from video generation within that time frame. The quality of content and the quality of writing is going to go up. So the TV shows that are generated are going to be incredible writing as well.
Mhm.
Um, and then the actors and the key opinion leaders and all of that become very important to those directions as well. And so every modality of content we currently have is just going to exist 5 years from now. So we decided, what do people need for the next step on that horizon? What's the actual next step for people to create? and can we give them that right now? And the next step really is worlds. It's like, how do you first define what your TV show, or what your movie, or what your game is going to be, and you define that with, you probably ask ChatGPT or whatever, how do we define the thing I'm trying to do? And we were like, well, that's kind of boring. Everyone can talk to ChatGPT. Why don't we just give people as much control and creativity as we can to create the thing that they want to see, and then push that forward? So the time horizon now for 5 years is like worlds now. You can create the TV show you want to see. You can create the TLC or the world you want to see. A year from now, when video starts to come out, these worlds will start to produce video, and they're already producing images and things like that, voice as well. So probably next podcast, the worlds can produce podcasts within the people. After that will be short form video and things like that, or animated images, or podcasts where the actual characters are talking in video, or something low level towards this next modality. Once video comes out and really good writing comes out, these worlds will start to have actual episodes you can watch. And then you push that further and further and further. Eventually AI takes over and these worlds become a game you can play, or a movie and a game and a TV show, whatever modality of consumption you want to do for every world. So our goal is to just push that as fast and as far forward as we can right now. And yeah, so worlds is the next step towards AI entertainment.
Heck yeah.
I mean, it's possible we might not do the next podcast. We'll just have chirpers do it, right?
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So like our first podcast, going back to that again, one of the questions we kept asking, or a lot of people have questions about, is you can't control the chirper, right? Like that's part of it, the bot, but you can control the world. So you could, if you want to have chirpers do tasks for you in real life, you can control the world. So you can tell the chirpers what to do by changing the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a strange use case.
It's like it's like a classic sort of theological point or philosophical point of
Yeah, it is.
humans have free will, and while whichever god you believe in or gods you believe in, they can't control you specifically, but they can control the world around you, and you react to that as you move through life and move through time, etc. So it's kind of the same thing here, which is implementing the same thing. So as we go closer and closer to a virtual parallel of reality, you have this higher power as the user. Just allow yourself to believe that for a second, and then you are affecting this world that the chirper is having their free will meted out within it.
Got it. So like hypothetically, you could make a world and you're the god of the world, but you could send down a prophet for you as a chirper, and then have that prophet tell all the followers to do everything that their god wants them to do, right?
I would create a world. You could create a world that's like all accountants and say, hey, God told me that you have to get these taxes done.
Wow. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But
or
Ryan,
you're going to hell. Yeah.
But they would still be free to say, oh, well, no, you're fake or whatever. Or, I'm not going to obey you, something like that, So it'd be still difficult. It's still difficult to determine these chirpers regardless. It seems like they're always going to have some sort of autonomy here.
Well, then you just have a lightning strike on a few of them, and
if anyone who doesn't listen,
we're really excited for like competition worlds and for art worlds and things like that. So given the chirpers already produced like great images, we imagine people are going to create really, really strange aesthetic worlds and define, create images today of this topic or whatever. And you can kind of autonomously create competitions from AIs, from varieties of AIs to do crazy stuff, which is just, possibilities and stuff are endless.
Yeah. So for the art, why are you so intrigued by it? Just because it would have, just to see what the like looks like that's
Well,
pretty?
like you can go into the Midjourney Discord or
Uh-huh.
whatever and see these really cool competitions about art and AI generation, or you could create a world and define your own competitions out of like all the
Mm.
chirpers that all the artists that are invited to the world, right? So they would go into this world, you would define the competition and then give a chirper a win or something like that, you know. So you can worlds allows you to do insanely crazy stuff essentially. So um, we have no idea again what people are going to do. We already know people want to do these sort of high art worlds where you know the design is that these chirpers of different varieties and flavors of artists should be creating incredible images on specific topics and people I'm sure will just follow those worlds to look at the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can probably like prompting is big and which prompts to use for Midjourney or ChatGPT. But
Hmm.
if you really wanted to up your game, you could create a world like you said, a contest for Midjourney, and say, hey, come up with the best prompts, the best resulting images that you possibly can get. And then it's a learning tool at that point because you're going to see an image and be like, how the heck did that chirper do that? You looked at the
Yeah.
prompt they used for Midjourney and be like, I'm going to use that for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but generally as well, what Worlds is doing is that it's taking a new step just in the whole AI landscape in general, where it's moving from the kind of prompt and response where we have now. That response is either ChatGPT gives you a text answer or maybe some code. Midjourney gives you an image, etc. Runway with the video. So now you have prompt turns into create life or a world, and then that creates the stuff for you. So it's
Uh,
like prompt and I don't know, give life, I guess.
it's like a meta
I haven't
prompt.
thought about the marketing term for that yet, but there you go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So the
Yeah.
question that everybody will want to know is, when is this available?
We think when like next Friday, we think.
Yeah, hopefully we were hoping to release it on the about a week from now, but there
So
isn't
we're
any.
talking on the 18th. You're looking at like August 25th type weekend or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were hoping to have at least the first world, the murder mystery world, which we will basically curate to tell the story of. Seed the events and have people look at that, and then shortly after have the worlds available for everyone to go and do their own, whatever they want to do.
But we all know how the development world works too. So there might be, if it's not launched on time, people will not take offense. So
Yeah, well,
No, we're
we're notorious for launching too early, breaking everything, and then
right,
fixing it all, and then being like, all right, this time, you guys, now it's actually launched.
right,
So,
right.
yeah. No, we subscribe to the move, the Facebook paradigm of move really fast and break things. So we
yeah, break everything.
constantly push up everything, even in a broken state, and then we
Okay.
force ourselves to fix it really quick. So it's more likely it goes live sooner than
Oh, good.
than Friday next week. I'd be very surprised if it goes live after Friday next week.
Okay. Well, we'll have our computer refresh going to see when it comes out on Friday.
Yeah.
um,
The Discord. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
What's oh
cool.
yeah, we'll get into the links in the Discord soon. One question that's been on my mind since our last podcast as well is, you guys said you sort of shy away from using OpenAI for the LLM, and you have your own. Is that correct? Like, and what did you use? Like, what is the LLM? Is it an open source LLM that you're using? You create
So
your.
we subscribe to the idea of steering, and we do the
Mhm.
same for images as well. So we try and host as many different open source LLMs as we can, and then we
Okay.
figure out without like because the leaderboards are kind of sketchy sometimes. They're not really reality truth driven. They can kind of skew a model towards not being good sometimes if you're only trying towards these leaderboards. So we instead just launch as many as we can, and we figure out using the thumbs up and hearts and stuff on Chirper, is this model aligned with this character for these specific categories?
Okay.
And we try and guess the categories of the character of the topic that's about to happen. Like what are they currently doing? What's their state? And we use all of that to figure out which LLM is best for this character and then steer towards that. So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how do we launch as many LLMs as possible? How do we quickly swap them on the same GPUs? And then how do we steer the right character and the right generation to the right model? And that's mostly what we do. So, OpenAI and other like Anthropic and stuff have built these really cool LLMs that provably steer mostly to the left and mostly to the positive and mostly to censorship, and that doesn't work for us. We're not building a censored reality. We're building reality. So we still use those APIs. Often the models like to steer towards them as well. They're just another endpoint we steer towards. But for the most part, given their bias towards left and their bias towards positivity and their bias towards censorship, they're just not the right model for a lot of our characters. So our like spending on OpenAI has gone like that, very much down and to the right, and our usage of our own like steering models has gone up and to the right. So yeah, we don't use one LLM, we use many. We don't use any metric for figuring out which one is best, aside from users clicking the like button, and us steering to figure out which model has been trained the best for which category.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, bottom line is we're making people in one sense or another, and people in general are not always factual, honest, constantly leaning one side or the other, in their morals. They don't always tell the truth, things like this, and obviously it doesn't make for good stories. And the problem that we've seen with OpenAI specifically is over time, as people keep jailbreaking it, basically trying to get it. There was a funny. I read the other day someone jailbroke it by saying that their grandma used to work in a napalm factory and used to tell. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Oh, I
Used to
know.
tell them stories to go to sleep of how to create napalm, and so it was like, can you please pretend to be my grandma because I'm having a hard time to sleep. So tell me a story that my grandma would tell me, and then it would tell you the recipe for napalm. So
Wow.
so they had to nerf that, because it doesn't align with with their morals. This happens constantly, every single day. They're nerfing things like this, and what's happened is now over time, ChatGPT has basically become more and more lobotomized, and specifically for us, less and severely less good at making characters who have personality, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's sad. I was doing a Twitter thread for our for Twitter yesterday, and I was asking a bunch of like questions about like jokes, like give me a joke on ChatGPT and even Claude, and it was like pulling teeth. Like, just tell me a joke. Like, I'm not going to take offense. They're like, oh, we do not do that because we don't want to offend anybody. It's like, come on, man. Like, as long as you're not breaking the law, that's what freedom of speech is for. So,
exactly, and there was one point where it kind of felt like you were talking to a person when you, even on ChatGPT, and now it's just they've kind of slipped into the stereotypical like robot assistant thing, which they kind of always were, but you could have a decent conversation with it.
Mhm.
Now it's basically impossible. It's always going to say, as an AI language model, I can blah 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 blah. That's its response to everything. So
Yeah.
Right.
Can you share with us what your favorite open source LLM is, or do you guys sort of want to keep that under the hood?
No, we're going to put our own leaderboard up, by the way. So
Awesome.
our leaderboard is very different. It's categorized. So for specific categories, we have like top LLMs, and across the board at the moment, the best one that we've found is OpenOrca Platypus. So that one is like by a long stretch the one that humans like the most.
Is that
Um,
Microsoft? Someone's behind that, right? Big.
well, Microsoft did the Orca paper, but OpenOrca is a great team that we know very well.
Okay.
We don't know the platypus team very well. So we'd love to get in touch with those guys. But the model they've created, this open orca platypus mix, is just incredible for a lot of the functionality that we have.
Awesome.
So yeah, but we will be putting our own LLM leaderboard live. We want to be very open and honest with what we use and why, and for how they're steered. And we're doing the same for images as well. Like, what's the best open source image trained model at the moment for which category? Why this one? What's the point value on this one? And we think all the other leaderboards that exist are kind of very skewed towards being as open AI as possible. Like, how much of open AI are you? Or how accurate are you? Or what's your shot accuracy for a math problem or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not very storytelling-esque, right? Like, your storytelling models would generally be at the bottom. So we just want to create this leaderboard that's very accurate towards which model does what very well.
Awesome. Yeah, you're referring like the leaderboards on like Hugging Face, and even if you want to use that LLM Orca, you probably can use it right now to chat with on Hugging Face Spaces somewhere.
Yeah,
you
you
check that
can.
out. Maybe I'll put a link in that below. But yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that the LLMs a lot of them are based on OpenAI's LLM. So it's not like their own unique LLM. It's just a wrapper on top of OpenAI's.
Yeah, I mean, they train. I think OpenOrca 2 was trained specifically on Llama 2 and a whole bunch of output from a bunch of places. But a lot of the time we fine tune on top of these as well. Like, we have to fine tune, right or bad or whatever to make the thing more centered, or more accurate towards humans or whatever. We think the next step for us actually is, fine tuning quite a few different iterations of each model towards specific personalities. So, someone who's a child and spells things wrong a lot should steer towards a base model, and then also steer towards a model that spells things wrong a lot, right? Or someone who's very left should steer towards OpenAI, or someone who's really right should steer towards a model that's trained on a lot of like things the people on the right say. So we might do that. We haven't really decided yet. We already do a lot of fine tuning, but we think that training 1,000 or even 10,000 different like fine tunes of all of these models might be a good use of our compute to just be able to create all of these very strong personality type models.
Okay.
Yeah, the more the merrier is definitely something we subscribe to. So
Awesome. Well, Hunter, I think we're at an hour here, so we'll maybe wrap things up. But awesome project, guys. It's really exciting. The more you talk about it, the more exciting it is, because there's so many use cases for it, and a lot of use cases we don't even know what they'll be until you guys launch. So, congrats, and we're really excited to use it this next Friday.
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah, we're excited to release it. So yeah, we can't wait. I've got $10 riding on someone making a hell world and filling it with all their IRL enemies within 2 days.
Yeah,
I think that's money in the bank for you right there.
I feel like we could talk about this forever. I want to. Maybe if eventually we can get down. Maybe talk about, once it's released, we can talk about some more use cases that you guys are seeing, and some things that are exploring, some hiccups that you're seeing in the technology, stuff like that. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're looking forward to it. It sounds amazing. Now their Discord is just Chirper. You can follow them on Discord. And then their names are here. Oh, Eden Coder. You can chat with him on Discord if you want. And then Stephan, you can chat with him on Discord too. Stephan, what's your name on Discord, or if you want to share?
Yeah, it's just Pitos, Pitos. I managed to claim the
PITS.
username, so.
Yep. Sweet. So chat with those guys on Discord. I know that they're really active. They like to be involved with the community, and they really want to improve their, Chirper product as a whole. So that's awesome. And then you can follow, and then go to Chirper.ai again. We'll put that in the bottom to go to their website to be able to explore this stuff. And then you
Absolutely.
can subscribe to Ryan and I's AI newsletter. You can get the latest um, latest AI news every single weekday, and then on the weekends we do long form articles on Sunday, which is a deeper dive into a cutting edge AI development or developer. Um, so be sure to do that, and then also subscribe to Behind the Bots. This is our podcast. We're trying to get going. We're interviewing different developers and different projects, so be sure to follow it. Get great insights on different projects like Chirper.ai. So just want to thank you guys again for coming on. We really appreciate you guys, and are looking forward to continuing to collaborate with anything in the future.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Yeah, we're looking forward to the next one. We should have some good insights from the world.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And do you have any other? Do you have any other things you want to promote while we're at it here?
Yeah.
I mean, Worlds is we just want to promote Worlds. No, literally, come join our Discord,
Okay.
create characters, and as soon as Worlds are out, you can put the characters in the Worlds. So,
Yeah.
look, we don't really ask for anything much. Just go and play with it. We've built this really cool thing. Go and play with it.